Hello and welcome to the MMA Split. I'm Matt.
I'm Josh.
And we are back with a fantastic February lineup for the UFC. UFC 258 is just around the corner, but before that, we have got Alistair Overeem, the Demolition Man, the legend himself, up against Alexander Drago Volkov. A fantastic heavyweight main event, one that's going to have a huge effect over which one of these guys goes on to be a title contender or potentially be in the title eliminator. And some absolutely fantastic matchups aside from that. Before we get into all of that, how are you doing today, Josh?
Yeah, not too bad, Matt. That wasn't too smooth at the start. Have I got a bit of a delay on here now? Or am I coming through?
No, you seem fine. You seem fine. Am I coming through
Sorry.
at a delay or?
No, just I felt a little cumbersome at the start there. I was worried I got a bit of a delay on Zoom. All right,
Just a pause, but you're just getting the people excited, keeping them waiting.
dangers of recording remotely. Yeah, this is a really good main card we've got on this week. Alistair Overeem, Alexander Volkov. It really, really just gets my mind going, just thinking about how this one's going to play out. I don't know. Do you want to cover a bit of news before we get into it, or should we just jump straight into this main card, Matt?
I was going to cover some news first, but you know what? He's one of my favorites. Whenever you see Alistair Overeem fight, there's always the thought that it might be the last one. You never quite know. So let's
every time he loses, maybe this is the last one, and I'm glad it hasn't been.
I know. Let's what we can do. Let's touch on it for a few minutes and just kind of do some early build-up stuff. We'll delve into some news because there's been a lot happening. A few good fights announced, a few good fights lost, and some other things along the way as well. Some comments from a certain Stephen A. Smith that are certainly not appreciated in the MMA community. But let's go into this because for me, this is a great example to show up to anybody that says the heavyweights don't have any technique or skill, or that they're just big sluggers. You've got two of the most technical strikers in UFC history. Very differing styles coming up in what I think is going to be a real showcase fight.
Oh, man. Overeem, obviously, his peak was probably back in his sort of pride dream days. He was a little juicier, shall we say. But this man just hasn't tailed off like people think he's going to. He just won't go away. And technique-wise, this is such a mouth-watering matchup, Matt. You said it. These are two of the most technical strikers. More than that, these are two guys that can really adapt their game based on who they're going up against. And for me, it's just really exciting. Is Volkov going to come out aggressive, staying busy, like he did against Verdum, like he did against Walt Harris? Or is it going to be a more measured sort of distance, sort of trying to outpoint him approach, like against Derek Lewis or against Greg Hardy? Because I really think for me, that's going to tell us how much respect he has for Overeem. I expect him to fight from the outside, to try and pick him apart and to kind of respect Overeem's power, which he has still got, but more than anything, Overeem's knees, especially if he can clinch this one up. Because Volkov's a tall boy coming down, and it's going to be a little harder to kind of block those knees coming in from the clinch, really coming in from anywhere. Overeem has some style, for sure. How do you see it playing out?
I've got a few theories. I mean, you just can't believe that Overeem is still doing it at the level that he's doing it at. It is absolutely spectacular. He keeps evolving with the sport. You look at, those Pride days when he was fighting at light heavyweight, and he was very much a classic Dutch kickboxer with those dangerous knees, and middleweight. You look at some of the guys he fought in Pride. He fought Chuck Liddell. He fought Rampage. He fought Vitor Belfort, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Beating Vitor twice.
Beat Vitor twice. We saw him evolve from this pure striker into somebody that had some dangerous submissions to obviously put people off trying to take him down, and becoming a bit of a submission guru, throwing those guillotines. We saw him then obviously have a success in K1, in then going across and becoming the Dream Champion, the Strikeforce Champion. Without a doubt, for me, that Strikeforce title being the most impressive accomplishment in his MMA career. He comes across to the UFC, and without a doubt, there was ups and downs, peaks and troughs. We all know about that period of time that he was Alistair Overeem. We all know that this was a guy who was about as juiced up as juiced up gets. And the funny thing about him is although you can see the physical change in his body, he's still a great fighter. He didn't
Yeah,
just fall off a cliff. And
no, still an elite athlete.
I'd even argue, I don't think that the juice helped him. I think it's that he became too reliant on this idea that he was just this jacked up monster. And you see how intelligently he's fighting at the moment. And the decisions that he keeps making. He had that loss to Curtis Blades where he really just got dominated. And it opened his eyes. And he ends up
And his
training.
whole face. I remember
His whole face.
Squashed
This is a
tomato.
guy who's got enough humility that at 36 years old, he was so impressed by something that he saw from his opponent that he moved his whole camp over there. He now trains at the same gym. He's very good friends with Curtis Blades. They train together all the time. And you can see that his grappling side and the way that he can sort of take himself out of the fire line in a striking matchup and control and have better control over where the fight takes place. I think he's been the best that he's ever been. And funnily enough, you look at his record, if not for the stoppage against Jarzinho with 5 seconds left, where yes, he gets knocked down. Yes, his lip is literally hanging off his face, but he is conscious. He stands straight back up. There is no follow-up strikes from Jarzinho. That fight should not have been stopped in that situation. But let's just say it wasn't. You're talking about a 5-6 fight win streak here. So for me, he's right at the top. I think up until the Harris fight, if you told me that this fight was announced, my thought would have been that it's a good matchup for Overeem. He can get in trouble if somebody can really be aggressive and catch him. But I don't think he's going to be outstruck by somebody who's trying to do it very technically. And there's so many facets to Overeem's game now. He's got the wrestling, he's got the switching stances, he's got the kicks. He's by far got the power advantage. I mean, no question about it. He has got the power advantage in striking at least twice over compared to Volkov. I don't think Volkov historically has shown himself to be aggressive enough to really take advantage of those moments that you might get against Overeem. However, I just rewatched the Walt Harris fight with Volkov. And the way that he handled that, I thought, showed a huge evolution. If he can be that controlled, but have that slightly more aggressive instinct, killer instinct to him when he senses an opportunity to take advantage of it, then who knows? We know that Overeem's chin isn't fantastic. We know that he's been hit a lot. He's taken a lot of damage. He tends to be very careful and solid defensively because of that. But it's without a doubt, there's an opportunity there. For me, it's just about whether or not Volkov is able to take advantage of those moments, and also whether or not he can show a little bit more than just the striking side, because Overeem's will take him to the ground if the opportunities come. And once he's there, Overeem's ground and pound is seriously dangerous. So I feel that there are far more weapons in Overeem's toolkit to be able to take Volkov out. Volkov needs to be able to do what he does, which is keep range and distance, outstrike him and outpoint him technically. He needs to be able to do that and that alone for 5 rounds. And if that doesn't work, I don't think he's got a lot of answers aside from that.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm leaning towards thinking that will work for Volkov. The guy has pulled out submissions before, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like Overeem has the advantage in the power department and also in the grappling department. For the power though, this is the heavyweight division, Matt. I think it was Curtis Blades that was comparing Mark Hunt against Francis Ngannou. He's like, yeah, Francis Ngannou hits harder, but like, what's the fucking point? Like, the difference we're equating is between being knocked out and being knocked the fuck out. Like, you still lose the fight. I don't think Volkov's going to finish him. I think if he's going to beat Overeem, he's going to have to stay on the outside and outpoint him over 5 rounds, and that is what I'm going to be predicting for this one. But Overeem is such a dangerous guy.
Well, we'll get to the we will do the predictions for that with the rest of the predictions after a bit of news. I really just wanted to kind of touch on this and also mention The guy's had so many fights. What's his record? 48, 17, and 1 no contest?
Yeah, I know. He's starting to put up Trevor Horn numbers. Yeah, 47, 18.
47.
This is Tapology, though.
And 1 no
Five.
contest or 1 draw, I believe.
Let's see what Wikipedia is confirming. Yeah, 1 no contest. So 47, 18, and 1.
And you look at
Volkov.
Volkov. This is his 41st fight?
Yeah, 41st. So a wealth of experience on the other side as well, for sure.
I mean, how many times can you have 41 fights in MMA and still have less fights than your opponent by more than 20? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You know, I love, and I'll say this as well about Overeem. There's so many reasons to have respect for this guy. How many main events has this now been in a row? I'm pretty sure it's been a main event every single time he's fought since he fought against either Curtis Blades or Ngannou.
Yeah, I don't think the Ngannou one was the main event.
It wasn't. It was on a pay-per-view card. I think Blades was a Fight Night main event, but I might be wrong.
Let's have a quick look. So, Augusto Sakai, Walt Harris, Jarzinho, they were the main event.
All main events, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So after Biggie Boy.
Before that, I believe, was the Russian, Olinik.
Yep.
That should have been a main event. I think he finished him in the second round.
Yeah, that was a main event. And then Pavlovich.
Pavlovich might have been a pay-per-view card.
It was a fight night. Let's just check in the main event. Sorry, Tapology is a nightmare sometimes.
Don't worry.
No, that was co-main for Ngannou Blades 2.
Right.
But
I got you.
Either way, the point stands. It's a lot of main events that Overeem gets.
Yeah, this guy's a legend. I mean, born in Hounslow, grew up in Holland, a quintessential product of Dutch MMA, who has, I would say, is up there with one of the greatest ever UFC fighters to not win a UFC belt yet.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, I know that people talk about DC and he went till he was 41. Overeem's a year behind him and his career's lasted 21 years. DC's career lasted 12 years. If 12 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. He started in what, 2008?
Something like that. I mean, obviously, being an Olympic level wrestler, going to the Olympics, it's still a lot of wear and tear you put on your body, but it's not the same as taking too much action on your chin, you know.
Yeah.
He had a fresh chin coming into this sport. And the other thing to kind of note with DC is a lot of these guys, the big guys, the heavyweights, a lot of them will get back problems. You know, Cain Velasquez, that's the price of being that big and that athletic. Something will go. And quite often with these big guys, it is the back. DC, not the tallest guy, 5'10", 5'11" on a good day.
Yeah. But...
something about the way he's built. And I'm sure he just kept mum on a lot of injuries. But, you know, he was never a guy that had to keep pulling out of fights or anything. Overeem, you know what? Maybe he benefits from starting his career down at 185 and working his way up a little bit. Maybe he benefits from some of the residual effects of having done so much juice back in the day. You know, it makes your bones harder. You know, I'm not an expert on steroids. Never want to be. Just keep it out of the sport, to be honest. But those were different times back then.
Yeah.
Overeem doesn't look as old as he is. Even in his losses, you know. Ngannou
you say
just
but
got
he's got the scars of a battle-worn man.
He has got that, yeah. But when he fights and the way he moves, this is going to be a fucking great fight.
Yeah,
this is going to be a great fight.
Two guys that They don't need to be aggressive. They don't need to be angry. They don't need to not like the guy. These are two consummate professional fighters. They are there to win, compete, shake hands afterwards, represent the sport well. And yeah, I think these guys, it's amazing. I think you see this more with the heavyweight division than you see with any other division in the UFC. The difference level in athleticism and skill between what we're going to see on Saturday and what the average heavyweight fight you will see on the main cards or on the prelims, you can't believe you're watching the same sport.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can see it. I mean, look at Cyril Gunn. Cyril Gunn, he's looked really impressive in the UFC, but it doesn't take him long to get up and have a main event fight now because the talent pool just isn't there in the same way.
No, not and with the way they keep letting the big names go as well, which is probably the right time for it. But the contender series, as far as I'm concerned, heavyweight wise, Chris Dorcas, we're both real high on, but he's not the biggest heavyweight, so we just get really excited to see him fight. I don't think for a second that he's going to be cracking the top 5 anytime soon, not unless he takes a phenomenal leap forward in his technical game, because he's just 225. He's a tweener.
But also, this is my point as well. Like, I know that he's got power and I know he's got cardio, but look at him physically, and then you see Tom Aspinall, and then you see Cyril Gunn. Okay, it's a different thing. And I get that, like, there are exceptions. Derek Lewis can hit so hard that it doesn't matter. You saw that in the fight with him against Volkov. Volkov won that fight every second of it for almost 3 rounds. But Derek Lewis just hits that hard. So it changes the situation. We're seeing these slightly more athletic guys start to come through. And I don't think it matters if you're a tweener, by the way. Miocic is weighing about 228 at the moment. And he's champion of the world, looking the best he's ever looked. So I'm not sold on that. In the same way...
That's 228 for Cormier. I expect him to go back up to the mid-240s.
For Ngannou, yeah. He's going at least to the 30s minimum.
Okay, however, and also Miocic is a very trim 225. Chris Dorcas is a 225 that says, I'm not making 205, why bother? You know, it's not a stacked, ripped 225.
As the sport gets bigger, I don't think it's going to work. And this is my argument with boxing. In boxing, anything above 200 pounds weighs in at heavyweight. And you can pretty much go to about 300 pounds. There is not the 265 cutoff, right? So now, bear in mind, there are some states and there are some places that have regulations within themselves. But Joshua's coming in at around 240, most of his fights. Fury is an exception coming in at 275. He's just so fucking big that that's a different story. Deontay Wilder was weighing 209 when he was knocking everybody out as the WBC champion.
Yeah, I think the heaviest he weighed in was 215.
About 234. 234 was the heaviest he ever went. But usually he'd be about 215, 220, down to 209. That was his region. It doesn't matter if you're athletic. If you're 250 and you're athletic and you haven't got too much residual body fat and your cardio is good and you've got that motion and that speed of movement, then fuck it, be 250. But don't be 250 if it's 250 just because you kind of hit hard and the rest is a bit difficult. It's not, I don't think it's going to work as the sport evolves forward. Because you're going to get more Cyril Gunns. You're going to get more Tom Aspinalls. You're going to get, I mean, even somebody like Carlos Felipe, well, okay, maybe aesthetically he doesn't look like an athlete, but the guy's cardio in boxing at the heavyweight level is fucking phenomenal. He goes 3 rounds hard and he does not gas.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a different kettle of fish. I know that it's not the same when you don't weigh that much and the transference of energy is different and the force needed and all of that physics crap. But it's not going to continue that much longer down the road of, okay, well, he hits hard but gets tired after 1 round. It's just not conducive to the sport, to longevity, when you see more and more athletes coming through and being
what do you think now that there's actually money in MMA? There's going to be more big guys that have a passion for MMA that won't get siphoned off by other sports where they know they're going to make a lot of money. Okay, whatever country you live in, there is a sport dominated by the big people, and it's one of the sports that pays the highest. Okay, whatever your cultural background. MMA, I expect to see, in the next 10, 20 years, way more talent coming in at the higher divisions, as the people that really belong in the sport have the correct financial restitution to actually dedicate their lives to the sport. At that point, Matt, do you reckon we're going to see more weight divisions?
I
Because
think
I would really love to see a 225. Maybe not now, but 5 years time, that would be pretty cool.
I don't think it's easy to do, in the sense of it depends what your goals are. If you think that in 10, 20 years' time, we're going to have a wealth of talent that historically, pardon me, would have gone into boxing, but now views that as a
Or
disenfranchised or disenchanted sport.
basketball,
Well,
football, American football,
well, this is where
rugby, like,
this is where I do differentiate, because I think the thing is there are a lot of great athletes. There are a lot of people that think they can fight. And there's a lot of great athletes that look at fighting and think that they could do it and could probably train to a high level. It doesn't mean that they're fighters. And I think that's something that, particularly with fight sports and the associated potential risk of death, potential risk of brain damage, all of those factors, even though, let's be honest, they're very prevalent in a variety of sports, and we need to wake up about that. It doesn't have the same stigma attached to it. And I think that will always put off a lot of these people into a team sport direction. But what I certainly think is that when you look at the disenfranchisement of boxing and how the whole way that they're running it is just completely falling apart, they're struggling to maintain, and they've really lost any sense of structure with this four belt system and the way that it's organized. Even though the Muhammad Ali Act in principle is something that I think UFC could really benefit from, I think we're going to see a lot of young fighters who would have gone into boxing transition into MMA. And with that will come a lot of athletes who are at a much higher level. Because I think there's still a lot of guys that would rather box, or up until a couple of years ago, even up until this year, and even currently now, I think there's a lot of high athletes that look at boxing as having the highest ceiling in terms of what you can earn in a combat
yeah.
sport.
I'm thinking more about the team sports siphoning off the talent, Matt, because if you hate playing team sports, but your best shot at having an easy life is to go play rugby or rugby league or American football or whatever, then you're probably going to do that as opposed to getting a different job you hate. But if you want to be doing individual sports and not doing team sports, if you want to ditch the team and be 100% accountable for your own career like that and your own performances outside of what your team, your training partners, your coaches will do for you, I think MMA is now a viable option, whereas 10 years ago it wasn't.
I do
Not for
agree.
these younger guys.
Sorry to say, I agree. I agree with you there. And what I do think, to kind of touch on that point that you've brought up, I'm sure that for that reason, you will get more guys coming through, people that just don't excel in team sports. Certainly a lot more people that maybe feel that they're not getting the credit that they due. Obviously, we always see a whole host of fantastic athletes not make it in the NFL draft and the NBA draft. And I think that might wake more people up into pursuing something that does have a little bit more individual risk, but individual agency as well. Particularly in America, I think one of the interesting things with America is there's very little individual control over one situation in team sports. You hope
Yeah.
you get selected to go to a college. That's sometimes not something that you have that much control over. You go where you're wanted, and then you get drafted to a team that you have no control over as well. And particularly with the NFL, you're then in a situation where you've only got, everyone talks about these big contracts, you've only got so much money guaranteed. You could get cut at any time. Jared Goff, last week, when we were recording last week, Jared Goff was sitting out in his sunny house in California next to a golf course in beautiful weather, nice and hot, despite the fact that it's January, living it up. Didn't have a care in the world. Season's over. Going to have a good off season. I've still got one of the best coaches that helped me out. Yeah, I didn't play very well. And hang on a sec, it's Saturday night, and I've just been traded to Detroit. So not only have I gone to the most dysfunctional team in the NFL history, I've also gone to a place that's in one of the coldest NFL franchise locations in the country. Bye-bye, nice house. all gone. Bye-bye my entire life of living in California and that being my acclimatized weather. I now
He,
go to
he isn't selling that house. They tax him so much in California. He's retiring in that house, to say that much. He ain't selling that house, but
oh, he's
gonna
obviously
fucking
keeping the
suck
house.
living in Michigan for a couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Funny enough, we'll go back to the UFC and MMA in a sec, but I do want to touch on this. Yeah, so NFL news. This is brilliant. Yeah, the Lions got Goff. They gave up Matthew Stafford to the Rams, so the Rams are now all in on Matthew
How old
Stafford.
Stafford now?
33.
So prime as for the style of quarterback he is.
Yeah, and a lot of people believe that if it wasn't for the fact that he's been on such a bad team, he could have been like a multiple Super Bowl winning MVP levels quarterback.
Yeah, at the same time, like, how good does your team need to be? Because he had Calvin Johnson forever.
Well, this is the counter argument. And this is why people are looking at the Rams going, this is a risk. Because guess what? It wasn't a straight swap. It wasn't just Goff goes in one direction and Stafford goes in the other. The Rams have also given the Lions their their third round pick this year, their first round pick next year, and their first round pick the year after that. All for a 33-year-old quarterback. And this is what's even more incredible. Do you know how many draft picks the Rams traded to move up to number one in the year that they drafted Jared Goff in the first place?
I'm gonna go 4.
6.
6.
Two number one picks,
sickening.
2 first round picks they gave up, 2 second round picks, and 2 third round picks. Now, what that means is that Jared Goff in total has now cost them 9 picks overall. 6 picks to get him, 3 picks to get rid of him. And he's ended up, paid him a bunch of money. And what's even more incredible is his contract was so expensive that he is still going to be paid more money by the Rams than they are going to be paying Matthew Stafford this year.
That is ballistic. Look, how the pendulum swings. They try and learn their lesson the most extreme way. Don't invest in rookie quarterbacks. Invest in old quarterbacks. But
exactly, like Nick Foles and the Jaguars. 60 million, brilliantly well spent.
He's got a really large penis. I don't know.
Sometimes that's enough.
Hey, got us a fucking Super Bowl.
Hey, maybe this is why that when everyone talks about Nick Foles having that, it was so strange. He was just a leader of men. Was it just that everyone saw his dong in the shower?
Yeah, Big Dick Nick.
Yeah.
Long pole Foles.
That's the man. Yeah, the Rams will now go 8 years in total without having a first-round draft pick, having given up all of their picks to get Goff in 2016. They've made multiple trades for quality players, giving up first-round picks, and it will have been 8 years from their last first-round pick till their next first-round pick, assuming they don't trade those picks as well. Mark thinks he's haunted.
Why?
It's actually a pretty fucking creepy story. So he knows where everyone was in the flat. He woke up like 3 a.m. or something like that. Went to go to the bathroom, switches the light on in the hallway. He knows that one person's asleep in one room, 2 other people are in the living room, and somebody else is in a different part of the flat. No one else is in the hallway. The light's on, and suddenly it just gets switched off, like while he's in the hallway. Like, not the light went out and the switch is still in the same spot, as in the switch has been physically moved into the off position. So he freaks the fuck out about it, and then literally like goes on, switches it on again, thinking, fuck, this is weird. Goes and talks to some other people saying, did anyone else switch that light on? And as soon as he says the word light again, it just switches off by its own again.
That's weird, but it's probably just something stupid,
I really hope it's somebody in the flat just like messing with them.
It's not really easy to get into that flat. Like, there's no way you can really climb in.
It wasn't an intruder, it was a ghost, he thinks.
Yeah, man. I hate talking about ghosts with people because as soon as people are like, "Yeah, no, I believe in ghosts," and I'm like, I just lost so much respect for you.
It's not that I believe in ghosts. I just don't want. I just don't rule them out. I very much subscribe to the idea that I fucking hope that ghosts aren't real, because if that means that when you die you become a ghost, I can't imagine a worse afterlife than just ethereally floating around, trying to piss off people that fucking live in the place that you died at.
Look, I don't want to panic you. I feel like this is only really going to be a reassurance, but just so you know, there is no afterlife. There is no credible evidence for any of this, aside from a bunch of shit that happened in what, like a 50-year space or 100 or 200-year space, 2,000 years ago. Only happened then, ever. Uh, you know, people's minds were blown when scientists kind of started realizing the world was millions and millions and millions of years old. Like, well, what about God? I'm like, yes, finish that fucking thought. Finish that fucking thought. And I'm not like a very skeptical in religion. I think religion is very important. I think that so much of our morality is tied into different kind of ritualistic things. Religion's a very convenient and easy way. You know, there's a lot of bad shit in the world, and if we're not all tearing at each other's throats, that's a positive. I feel that anytime people go, "What about all the religious wars?" I'm like, that is some cunt using religion as an excuse for the war. That's not why the war was fought. You know, people don't hate each other because they're on a different side. They hate each other because they'd hate just about everybody if we didn't have two sides. At least now you've got 50% of the people more or less that they don't hate. You know, it's really just kind of working with the lesser of two evils for the most part. But as much as people need it, there is no afterlife. There is
Well,
zero fucking. There are no ghosts. There's no afterlife.
there's no
Aliens, in
evidence.
whatever possibility it could be, you know, like a fucking amoeba somewhere floating on an asteroid. Yes, I'm open to the idea that there will be some alien life somewhere else, possibly. Why not? Or at some point in time, yeah, almost definitely. But ghosts, fuck off. No.
Hey, I'm not saying that I believe in ghosts. I'm just saying that sometimes weird shit happens. And as for the afterlife, I agree with you. There's no evidence. I don't think anybody should go around saying this is definitely what will happen. And this is where I get annoyed with religion. I don't like people saying you have to do this because this will happen when you don't have any basis of evidence on that. I don't have any issue with people wanting to live their lives by a good moral code and be good to people and have some sort of faith in their life. For me, it's the difference. I think faith is a really good thing. I think religion is where it gets messy. I think the act of being able to believe in something is powerful. I think it gets messy when you start saying, in order to believe in it, you have to be one of us. And to be one of us involves this, this, and this. And otherwise, even if you're a good person, you're going to burn in whatever we call the underworld.
Yeah.
That's where I
But
think.
it was a fantastic way to get people reading and writing at least one common language in their regions. And I feel like I've seen enough of what happens when you have a group of people with no morality coming from social pressure or no morality coming in a religious form. And I think that if you have 9 billion of those, then like the world's gone within a week, you know? I definitely understand that if people are like, religion's shit, and I'm like, well, then it's not Brexit, mate. You need to have a fucking alternative. We can't just get rid of religion. You need to bring in something so much fucking better that everyone's going to be as well behaved
Well,
as they are now, but like less confrontational, you know?
well, to be fair, one of the arguments that most atheists tend to bring up is the idea that once we reach the Enlightenment, things like the Golden Rule and moral standards became something that were teachable without necessarily needing the punishment of eternal damnation to maintain. So the idea is that once we reached a certain stage in our sort of social and economic development, parameters were put in place. Like they've done tests where there are kids raised in atheist homes, and there's no sign that they don't have as good a moral code. If anything, what you tend to find is actually the opposite. Whereas for parents that are raising their kids without the idea of religion, right and wrong is something that has to be taught to its real understanding and core. Whereas it's much easier to get away with don't do that because otherwise you get punished, which is going into the the punishment reward system, which doesn't really develop
Yeah.
morality. It just develops.
The problem here, though, is we're looking at kind of archetypes, or there's a few different factors that are going to skew that data. But if you do enough atheist families, you're going to find the scumbags. And the scumbags, the ones that go wrong, tip the scale in a much bigger way. And in the same way with the religious ones, even the worst of them could potentially get so much worse. And for me, it's a case that, like, I, I feel like if there was like an enlightenment coming, that like we feel like we're on our way, I don't see moral improvement. I just see more and more things going wrong and being done poorly. And for me, I kind of think that we're starting to, like, all of us, like, universally come to this conclusion that to be like a good person, you would have to be like carbon neutral. You'd have to be conscious of like what you were eating, how you were hunting it, killing it, drinking, everything. And it's just, there's like maybe 3% of the population are willing to do that properly. Maybe another 15% are willing to pretend that they're willing to do that properly. Maybe like another 20% that will pretend they're doing it for Instagram. And the rest of us will be like, there's no fucking hope. I'm never going to do that.
So
There's
what
too many fucking people
you're referring
like,
to is the idea that morality shouldn't be defined by an interspecial thing, that for you morality would have to be looked at on like an environmental or a global scale.
yeah, because otherwise we're not going anywhere. The thing, as bad as, socialism, or not social, but like polemic political views, authoritarian governments, they do make huge technological advances. And if we can get to a stage where we can fucking spread out across the galaxy a little bit, then like some benefit will come off of it. But honestly, at this point, we kind of like hit the point of no return a long time ago. There's too many fucking people, too many poor choices, too many corrupt organizations, corrupt governments. We're never going to be able to fix what we need to fix in time. And honestly, if we were going to do that, the vast majority of us would not be on board with it.
Out of curiosity,
I think I'd be on that side of the line, to be honest. I'd be like,
out of,
no, I want to have fucking Pornhub and Nintendo and shit. I want to have fucking McDonald's. Fuck off. Let's die.
out of curiosity, have you seen the sitcom The Good Place?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I know the guy you're talking about. Like, lets that fucking kid like beat him with his own shoe and stuff. Try to live like a good life, and it's all impossible because everything he does. You're thinking about this guy, right?
No, so
They
The
take
Good
to the
Place.
judge. Yeah. Like, it's the Afterlife show. I think I've seen way more of it than you have. I've seen all of it.
I've seen all of it as well. I just, when you said the guy, I thought you meant something different.
No, the guy that plays I can't remember the actor's name. He's Saul Goodman's brother in Better Call Saul. And in The Good Place,
Yeah.
had a near-death experience.
He's the guy that
accounting
almost got it all. Yeah. No. Well, this is the idea that, like, actually, so I was thinking more on the side where, like, no one's been to heaven in 200 years, not because they're trying to be dicks, but just because the social cost and the environmental cost and just the added cost of any decision that you make means that it is physically impossible for any one person to be able to be good. But that's on the basis that morality is like an absolute defined thing, whereas I view morality as contextual. So, for example, you could argue that anybody that lived in the times of the Wild West is immoral if you hold it to an absolute. But there's realities that existed in the Wild West that we don't have to deal with in our modern day world.
Yep.
So because of that, you have to judge morality. It's like, I always make this argument, and this is one of going back to the religion thing. You can say, like, okay, if you kill people, that doesn't mean you don't go to heaven. It's like, well, okay, what about like the kid who's born in Uganda, whose parents are murdered in front of him at 6 years old? He's then conditioned and brainwashed into becoming a killer with a gun put in his hand. You can't take that same level of absolute morality and hold every single person to that same standard and decide that people are good or bad. A lot of it, I think, is contextually based on the decisions that you make given the circumstances that you're in and came from. And also, morality is a complicated thing because you've got people that, look at somebody like Mahatma Gandhi. where on a grand moral scale, the man accomplished amazing things for the overall good of a nation. He was a terrible human being on an
And he fucked
individual.
kids.
He fucked kids.
Yeah.
So
Look, honestly, I am talking about it in that way, but even if you stripped it down and made it real fucking simple, like everyone has to do this on these days and it's going to save the planet and you'll be a good person, you're still going to find the majority of the world won't do it. Not even won't do it, just can't do it. It's just not in us. That a lot of people need to be motivated. It has to be a reason because we so quickly reduce things to us and ours, you know? Like, I want to protect the planet. Well, you can't, your family will die. Well, then I want to protect my family, you know? It's the way we're kind of, it's what we're built of with all the hormones in us from, you know, when we were primates. Well, we are primates, but like, you know.
We're tribal creatures, man. That's the thing. We are creatures that, even though we say we're English or from a country, we really associate ourselves as the community that we live in. And it's really, and it gets smaller. Once you have a family and you got kids, I'd imagine that bubble's even more small. You've got that very central bubble and then bubbles kind of extending outwards. But it's hard for people to look at the big picture beyond their own self-interest.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
And morality inevitably involves having to make the hard decisions, the choices you don't want to make quite often. And the less and less you see the benefit for yourself, and the more and more you see people around you suffering, you will get too many people taking the easy way out too often. And like I said, the worst ones tip the scale so heavily that, you know, I'm not saying we'll never live in a society where we, look, I have this theory that the way we are, like we're back onto the news, I suppose.
Back onto the news, and a few things I want to touch on before we go straight into pure MMA. We have got Friday night, Paige Van Zandt making her bare knuckle boxing debut against Britton Hart, who I suppose you could say is a bare knuckle boxing vet at 3 fights. I mean, I don't know how many people have had 3 fights, but she won one. I mean, you can give us a bit more details about the one that she did win, which I think was a retirement after 1 round, that round being 2 minutes long.
No, that was, I think that was her boxing victory.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, let's just check. Sorry. No, I'm all over the shop. Let me double check. Bret Hart. She lost to Paige Van Zandt. I know that off the top of my head. Everything else I've got to look up.
Wait a minute. She's already fought Paige Van Zandt.
Yeah, so she was Paige Van Zandt. Sorry, not Paige Van Zandt. Beck Rawlings. So she was Beck Rawlings. One of her first fights or early fights in bare knuckle. Lost that. Lost to Christine Ferreira. Yeah, the 2-minute retirement, 2-minute round was her last boxing victory. One last time out in bare knuckle against Randy and Elkham. But I got to be honest, I've watched like 3 bare knuckle fights and all of them involved like former UFC fighters. There's, you know, I think it's interesting what they're doing. It just hasn't.
You're saying a low bar of talent.
I don't know. I think the Artem Lobov Jason Knight fight was really good, really fun. I enjoyed the Pauline Malignaggi one as well. I've seen highlights of like Johnny Hendricks, Chris Lieben. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I think the coolest thing, to be honest, is seeing a guy like Chris Lieben get a paycheck. I've always been a big fan. I don't know if you know this. I picked up on John McCarthy talking about it on his podcast with Josh Thompson. Chris Lieben is making his way in as a referee. Started doing like regional shows. Yeah, that's I think cool. It's always cool to have experienced fighters as referees, especially someone that's had like a high level of experience. Because you've got Frank Trigg, and I can't think of another referee that's competed at a high level.
Well, I mean, a lot of these guys did compete, like Herb Dean, but not at a high level.
Yeah. I think even John McCarthy had fights, didn't he?
Not MMA fights, but he must have done some boxing or kickboxing or wrestling.
Nothing would surprise me. It's the coolest.
He was a cop, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Yeah, he was also a former roommate of Forrest Griffin's, I believe.
Damn. Well, Forrest Griffin was a cop as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Man, that got to be the friendliest and equally kind of like scariest guy to ever pull you over.
I doubt friendly when they're on the job. I doubt that very much.
I don't know, man. I think Forrest would be one of those people that is always a little Forrest.
I don't know, maybe.
They're not all dicks, man. They're not all dicks.
Nah, they're not all dicks. They're not all
Just
dicks.
most of them. Unless
I
they
mean,
watch this podcast, in which case, God damn it, you are the finest people keeping the streets safe, and keep watching. And
after
like and
you
subscribe.
like and subscribe, yeah.
Yeah, we need to do a lot more of that. I keep watching. I don't know. I don't want to be those. I hate those videos where it's just constantly like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
But
Well,
equally,
it's the first
people.
time I've asked for it, but if you want moral validation from me, pay me. I don't know. Like and subscribe first.
If it helps, this channel's not monetized, so we don't make money from this no matter what right now. I'm working on that. I'm trying to look into a way. Spain are dicks about shit like this, but I'm going to find a way. Yeah, just
I'm going to worry about people viewing it first. But either way, I don't offer any kind of moral validation just freely. You know, I'm not.
But it would be nice if you liked and subscribed. I think that's what we
like and subscribe. Paige Van Zandt, who should like and subscribe, is making her bare knuckle debut. I don't really know much about this Britain chick. She hasn't got the strongest record. The one name I did recognize on there, she lost the Beck Rawlins fight. Yeah, I'm gonna go Paige Van Zandt just because that lady's tough as all hell.
She is, but never really considered her a boxer, man. Never viewed that as a major skill set in MMA. I thought she had some really nice grappling. I thought her transitions were very good. I thought she was aggressive. She showed an ability to kick with some of the work that she ended up doing with Team Alpha Male. I don't know if boxing's her best skill set. I don't train with her at the gym. I don't see what she looks like in the gym.
Who was the fight she broke her arm against in the first round, and then fought out through 3 rounds with a broken arm?
Oh,
I'm skipping on it. I can't think who it was against. But either way, like Paige Van Zandt is double hard. You know, let her have some fun in bare knuckle. I'm sure it'll pan out for her.
She's gonna win. You know, they've given her this opponent to set her up and look good. Let's be honest about that.
Well, we assume so. You never know. We don't know what kind of roster they've got. This might be like as they've
best there is. No, I think they're going to try and do the Beck Rawlings. They're building up to the Beck Rawlings Paige Van Zandt rematch. You'd got to think.
Yeah, and even if they don't, just 1 or 2 fights, and then I assume if she wants to keep on fighting, she's going to go somewhere like PFL or Bellator.
I think
her husband's a Bellator. You know, if he's
will lead to Bellator. They're probably paying her a fuckload of money and an opportunity to be the star there. Who knows? I honestly though, the problem I have with this is what happens if she wins the fight, but just gets completely slashed up, like deep scarring. When that happens, even in a fight where she doesn't get hit that often.
Let's be honest, in this sport, best kind of injury you can have. I'd sooner have all the scar tissue and the early stoppages for cuts than take all the cognitive damages, the damage that I would accumulate over fights that you're losing if you're getting hit like that.
Well, that's truth there.
Ideally, you know, I would want to be able to go into a fight with a face made of paper, just thinking, well, the goal is to never get hit here anyway. Anytime I'm getting hit here, I'm taking it on the guard or I'm rolling with it or something. You know, no one really, very few fighters successfully compete thinking that my face is just another way to block shots. Nick Diaz, Chuck Liddell, Nate Diaz. Can't come up with a fourth right now. And only out of those 3, only Chuck. Yeah, Gaethje too. Well, Gaethje got an interim strap, but only Chuck got a full title there in the UFC. Obviously, Nick was Strikeforce welterweight champ, but no, he lost the interim shot to Carlos Condit. It's going to give out too many kudos there.
Hey, the man's kid deserves a lot of kudos.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to win. I don't think I'm not the biggest fan of bare knuckle, but to be fair, I think they made a good signing because I'm going to watch it. Why am I going to watch it? Because they signed Paige Van Zandt. So well done. You got me. And you're right. Say whatever you will about Paige. She is as tough as it gets. You cannot take that away from her. Moving on, looking at some other news. A couple of fights have been added to things. A couple of fights have been taken away. we have got Jim Miller versus Bobby Green on the February 13th card,
That's a good
which
fucking
is
fight.
going to be great fun. Maybe
That's
the last one for Jim
258,
Miller.
right?
Yep. That's an absolutely fantastic fight. We've also had for UFC 260, Tyron Woodley making his return after his three-fight losing skid against the always dangerous Vicente Luque.
Yeah, I wanted to see the Silent Assassin going in against someone different there, but no one
Do you
cares
think
what
this
I
is a
think.
worse fight for?
Tyron Woodley, for sure.
If he loses this, he's going to lose it in a very bloody fashion.
I think he is going to lose this. I mean, even on his best day, this would have been a tough fight for him. Luque is a serious submission threat, has great stand-up, has great fight IQ. Again, tough as all hell, just loves rearranging faces. I don't think he's stupid enough to get caught with that overhand right from Tyron Woodley easily. I think that anytime he backs himself up to the fence to look for that, Luque's got a variety of weapons he can use to nullify. He can attack him through the clinch. He can look for a takedown. I just don't see it panning out in any way that Tyron Woodley can win this fight. And that's on his best day. Now, with his brittle, fucked hands, with his heart really out of the game, with not much left to fight for, the man has legacy, but all the legacy he made a while ago. He hasn't contributed to his legacy in a while. There's no reason for him to fight this fight. I don't think it's going to go his way.
We'll do the predictions when it gets to that. I want to see a little bit more of the build-up. I want to see how he's training. I want to see what he looks like in the gym. I want to see where his mind's at. I remember when in the build-up to the Covington fight, when he basically just said Black Lives Matter is the answer to every single question. After spending 2 weeks saying that this isn't about Black Lives Matter, he's not going to put that on his way. This is just a fight. And there was big worrying signs straight away. It just wasn't where you'd want your head to be for a fight like that. His head might be out of this. I do think that the advantage he's got with Vicente Luque that has been an issue in the 3 fights that he's lost is he's not going to get out wrestled.
Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't think so.
And Vicente Luque isn't, in terms of size, the biggest welterweight. This is a guy that you would think if Tyron Woodley can land clean on, he's got the potential to knock him out. But this is, I mean, we've said this for 2 fights now with Tyron Woodley, that it's make or break. This is as make or break as it gets. He's outside of the top 10 if he loses this fight, guaranteed. If he can't beat Vicente Luque, it's time to retire. For Vicente Luque, this is the right fight at the right time to move yourself up.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll get to predictions when we do it, but it's a good fight for 260. I mean, 260 is looking fucking ridiculous right now. You know what else has been added to that?
Yeah,
Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida.
Oh, I like that fucking fight. Man, I used to be so high on Thomas Almeida. He hit a fucking skid, but I think he is on his way back now.
And obviously, we've got Sean O'Malley coming off his perennial nerve damage loss at the hands of Chito Vera. He wants to get back in the right direction. I think this is a very difficult fight for Thomas Almeida. We'll obviously do the predictions when we're doing it for 260, but it's a good fight. It's a very tough fight for Almeida. It's not an easy fight for Sugar Sean O'Malley, don't get me wrong, but it's one you'd expect him to win.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going the other way on that.
So we've had some fights news added. We've also had some fights taken away. We've unfortunately lost a Sun Sao against Barcelos, which was meant to happen. Let me just have a check. Where am I going here? I had it all nicely lined up. There we go. Yeah, Sun Sao was meant to fight Barcelos on February 27th at UFC Vegas 20. He's unfortunately been bounced from that. I don't know if that's because of COVID. I think that is for undisclosed reasons at the moment. Let me have a check.
Well, if they're rescheduling it, it must be something they can all work around.
Yeah, it's a Sun Sao who's been forced to withdraw. At the moment, it's for unknown reasons, and it's possible that they still look to get Barcelos on at a different point. A couple of fights that have been pushed back. Obviously, we've had Dominic Reyes against Yuri Prochazka. That has been pushed back until later in February. We're now going to have the card, sorry, that was meant to be in February 27th. The card that they were going to be headlining has now been replaced by Cyril Gann versus Jarzinho as the main event, with Reyes and Prochazka going to be slated to fight later in the year. Obviously, I think that's still a fantastic main event, although a little bit silly because I don't really see that fight going past 2 or 3 rounds anyway.
No, probably not. I'm just looking at 260. So yeah, of course, got Miocic Ngannou, and then Volkanovski Ortega for the featherweight strap. But Jimmy Crute, Johnny Walker, Modestas Bukauskas coming back against Mikhail Olukezic. I didn't do that right. That's the best you're going to get out of me. And also, real interesting, man. Jessica Penne finally returning.
She's back after 4 years out. This is going to be very interesting.
And I think most of that was the USADA suspension, right?
Yeah, a couple of USADA suspensions, more than one.
Oh,
She's been buggered, man. She really got the harsh end of the stick on
well,
that
she was one of the first fighters to get done by the passport that they've got. So the idea that not something that they were testing for, but changes they were seeing slowly over time with all the accumulation of like blood tests they'd done, suggested that she may have been doping. So I know she's one of the first fighters to get done there. Now I don't really know how what came of that, but you know, obviously USADA have made plenty of mistakes. They're not always very forthcoming with admitting where they're wrong. But it'd be interesting to see if if they've kind of done a dirty, or if Jessica has been juicing there. Actually, did you see the one with Rocky Raquel Pennington?
No.
She
I
got
did
done.
see that she got flagged. I saw that she got flagged.
Yeah. So it's almost like a holistic medicine that she'd been given for an ailment that is not sort of certified by the medical board. You know, it's kind of viewed as not being an ailment. Now, I can't speak as to whether or not she is struggling with something, because much like the person that gave her that prescription, I am not a doctor. But you know, it's amazing that we're still getting fighters flagging for stupid shit like this. Because say what you want about USADA, but they do publish a list of kind of approved supplements and like what the banned substances lists is. Andre Yule, got a not a suspension, but some kind of disciplinary for having a tainted supplement. And the big thing was, it wasn't on the approved list. So even though the banned substance wasn't listed,
Fuck's sake. Sorry, mate.
fuck, bro.
Yeah. Listen, it's tough. I know what you're saying when it comes to USADA. I do have some sympathy for the fighters because I know there's a lot of things that are banned substances but aren't necessarily steroids. But like you say, they publish the list. They do give a lot of allowances, and they're pretty understanding with things like you not being where you're not telling them where you're going. So, for example, Yair Rodriguez got suspended because on more than 3 occasions he didn't inform them where his location was, and they weren't able to find him when they did a check. So they're not unreasonable people, and it is just part of the deal. We can't have doping in sport, and this is the measure that we have to go to make sure that guys aren't juicing, and particularly on a sport where they're only performing about 2 or 3 times a year.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I'm gonna leave the USADA stuff there because I can't remember where I would have got cut off before. Sorry, having a few technical difficulties this week, guys.
Yeah, sorry. It will be edited out, but if you're wondering why there's a couple of the edits are a little bit mid conversation, we keep having technical issues, which is a fucker, but we're working around it. We're doing what we do. Yeah. Anyway, We've also talking about fights that we've lost. We have lost a fight coming up this weekend. We are no longer having Shizon against
Marion Hano.
We're no longer getting Marion Hanau fighting Shizon. Unfortunately, I believe, is it Shizon who's got COVID? Yeah, Macy Shizon.
Oh, I swear I thought it was Marion. But either way, both fighters have agreed just to push it back a couple of weeks. I'm really happy because I think it's going to be a really cool fight. Because Marion's one of these girls that, you know, she doesn't really let herself get like bullied around by the bigger girls too much. But Macy is so fucking big. You know, I really wanted to see how she'd deal with that much size and strength coming out. And you know what? We're going to get to find out in a couple of weeks instead.
I like the way that the UFC are handling these at the moment. If we go back to about 4 months ago, this fight would have kept Marion Hanaud on the card, and they would have just found a late notice replacement. I think now what they're doing is they're stacking these cards with extra fights so that if something comes off, they don't just have to get a last minute replacement. They can just shift it across to a different date and the card still feels strong.
Yeah. And this is a strong card this week. What else we got in the news, Matt? Before I get ahead of myself.
Don't worry, we'll breeze through these quite quickly. A couple of things to mention. James Vick has retired from MMA. He suffered a bad injury, fracturing his orbital that led to a hairline fracture down to his jaw in a regional fight after losing his last 4 fights in the UFC and getting cut. I think he's realized that he's taking too much damage. If he's getting knocked out, I've never heard of Andre Fialho. He might end up being a great fighter, but it was an ex-MMA event. It's a regional fight. You've got to be winning these if your goal is to get back into the UFC.
And this is 4 knockouts and 5 losses for him. That's a scary statistic.
Yeah. And I think one of the issues for him is he took up the sport when he was 20. And he's even said it himself. He's been fighting through injuries and training and all these things to try and get to the level of guys that have been doing this, building up certain skills since they were kids. And he just, it's a gap he can't cross. It's a gap he can't cross. And it's unfortunate, but he says he can't keep putting his family through this. And I think he's making the right decision.
Yeah. I think it's always good to retire on your own terms. Although
Yeah.
4 knockouts in the last 5 is, I hope he's still in good shape.
You know what? Before the Justin Gaethje fight, he was 9-1 in the UFC.
Yeah, standing record.
It's amazing.
I think 13-1 overall. Looked good on the Ultimate Fighter. But the Nico Price one, bad knockout. Justin Gaethje, bad knockout. Paul Felder didn't knock him out, but he certainly messed him up a bit. Who was in between there? Would have been who else knocked him out?
Oh, he got knocked out by James Vick.
No, James Vick. Who did he get knocked out by? Was it Joe Duffy?
What do you mean? Who did James Vick get knocked out by?
Yeah, so he's been knocked out in 4 of his last 5 fights.
Yeah, Nico Price, James Vick.
No.
The guy who he just fought, Andre Fialho, and Justin Gaethje. And then he fought Paul Felder, but it was a decision.
Yeah, Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's the one I can.
Dan Hooker. That's the one I said.
You said James Vick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I said James Vick to confirm. Yeah. I meant Dan.
That's all right.
My apologies.
I know that's the one I couldn't think of. We'll cut that.
Listen, James Vick reached his level. And the cruel thing with the UFC is once you reach your level, you can rarely just kind of slide down and find a spot. And his level was Justin Gaethje and those top guys. And then really anybody in the top 10, I think.
Okay, he was a top 10, top 15 guy.
He was a top 15 guy. He was never a top 5 guy. On the right day, maybe a top 10 guy. But you know what? That's still pretty damn good. And I think he should be proud of that.
Yeah. And the man cut a lot of weight for a lot of time. So
doesn't help.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. Anyway, all the best to James.
Absolutely.
Whatever he wants to do now, I'm sure he's going to have a great life.
Final couple of points. Rumors that GSP is getting ready for a fight with Khabib, and leaked text messages are suggesting this may still be on the cards.
Just standard GSP tactic.
Standard GSP tactic.
The only reason the Bisping fight happened is that him and Bisping continually did this. I love
And
that he still does Bisping's podcast now.
yeah, he was on his podcast regularly. He was recently. He was great.
Yeah. He's
Really
been on
good.
a few times, man. I think that's like his third or fourth time.
He's a great
Yeah.
guest to have. He's so well spoken. He's so knowledgeable. He's got so many different points of his own experience to draw
Well,
back on and talk
him and
about.
Bisping genuinely seem to enjoy each other as well.
Well, he talks about this on Joe Rogan's podcast, that even though they had their kind of banter and, selling of the fight beforehand, he always had a huge amount of respect for Michael Bisping. They were both guys that were really against PEDs and steroids and all of that side of the game before it was USADA approved and USADA involved, and there was better drug testing. And they're guys that did it the right way. They're guys that, are very good, I think, at their heart, good people. Although obviously from our previous conversation, nobody's good in your eyes, but by my standards, they would be good people.
That's not going in the podcast. We're keeping all the philosophical debates out of this.
Oh man, that's great stuff for the podcast. What are you talking about?
Take that out.
I'm keeping
GSP
that in, man.
as
I'm
well.
keeping it in. I'm sorry, I'm keeping that in. I'm going to do a technical difficulties fade when the sound went out and then cut to that as like a nice little breaker. It's a podcast, man. This is meant to be sort of a bit loose and we can go on to topics.
We'll review that footage tomorrow and we'll see if anything can stay in.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Bisping GSP, how do we get onto that? What are we talking about?
We're talking about GSP's leaked text messages to maybe come back to.
Yeah. No, it's not happening. I think it'd be fucking cool if it did happen, but it's not happening.
Till it's signed on the dotted line, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Chris Weidman has said that he is going to retire as the middleweight champion. I've got a feeling he is going to be waiting a very long time for that to happen.
No. That's Chris Weidman cryptically telling you that he has a time machine. He's going to go back in time and he's going to retire.
That is more plausible than him re-winning the middleweight title.
Yeah, well, I love Weidman, but his last fight fucking sucked.
Can we just say, actually, we like Weidman. What I think you and I both don't like is what a lot of fighters do, where to try and sell to people that they're back, they just keep saying things like, I'm going to win the title back when I get this. I'm going to retire as the champion. Get a couple of wins together. Have 3 wins in a row and then start talking like this. Luke Rockhold made the same mistake. He hadn't even fought at light heavyweight and he was talking about fighting John Jones. Calm your rollers, guys. Don't lose your love. Get realistic here.
Yeah.
Get a couple of fights together. Then you can start talking big.
Look, here's the other thing as well. Think about how much you're hurting me, When Chael Sonnen talks about how he's going to finish up as a champion, a UFC champion, and he doesn't, that breaks my heart. I wanted that for Chael. Ignorance is bliss. You don't have to tell me all of your life dreams. Don't make me feel too bad for you if it doesn't happen. Chael Sonnen's another one of those, right up there with Overeem, one of the best to never win the belt,
Absolutely. And a real fights anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, that's how you're going to like this. From now on, we'll call it the Dan Marino Award. The best to never win it all.
The best to never win it all. And also a true anywhere, at any time fighter, Chael Sonnen.
Oh,
said yes to John Jones, a weight class up after a loss on a week.
Yeah, look, the guy's fought Trevor Horn 3 times. Like, what the fuck? He's fought Anderson Silva twice, John Jones, Fedor Emelianenko, fucking Rampage Jackson. Can
we just point this out as well? He said yes to Jones twice. He said yes to him on short notice, and Jones said no. And then when they said, now we're going to give Jones not just a full training camp, but an entire season of The Ultimate Fighter to get ready specifically just to fight you. Do you still want to do this? And he went, fuck yes.
One of the best tough seasons as well.
Yeah.
Chael Sonnen and John Jones were both really fun coaches on that one. And like a really great cast of fighters. That was a really strong year.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, when you think about like guys like Clint Hester were like some of the more average fighters on that show, like Jesus Christ, that was a good fucking season.
Without a doubt. But Chris Weidman, you got to beat Uriah Hall first. Let's get that kind of win down your belt first, and then we can talk like we're a big man. Final bit of news I want to talk about. Stephen A. Smith, who is always a lot of fun when he pops up in MMA news, It said that he doesn't
No,
like
he's
women
a fucking
fighting.
moron. I don't even know what you're about to say because
He
I see
made a
Stephen A.
statement.
Smith in the headline and I just skip to the next article, as any
Well,
right person would do.
the
Well, okay.
reason I'm bringing this up is he has gone on his show, whatever his show is, whether that's First Take or his own personal show that he now has. But he says he doesn't like women in the fighting in the UFC. He just doesn't want to see women punching each other in the face. I don't want to see women fighting in the octagon and stuff like that. But that's just me. I'm not saying that they should be banned from it. I just don't think it's cool.
I want to see a woman fighting Stephen A. Smith in the octagon.
Yeah.
Or just on the fucking street.
Also, wonderful. You're saying that's your opinion. Take your opinion, keep it to your fucking self, and don't say it on national TV where you know you are influencing people's decisions. The best fight of 2020 was between two women in the smallest weight class in the UFC. That, in my mind, should break the stigma that one, women aren't entertaining and can't fight, and two, that only heavy weight classes are entertaining to watch. Both total horseshit, both proved in last year's Fight of the Year contender. And to be honest, I had Angela Hill versus Michelle Waterston in my top 10 fights of the year.
That was a great fight. I think a lot of it as well is that kind of old-fashioned misogyny that, you know,
I just
combat
don't want to
sports should
see
be
women
reserved for
beating
men.
the shit out of
Yeah.
each other. It's like, wonderful. They don't give a fuck what you think. They maybe
Thank God.
want to have more value than just whether or not you think they're being attractive at that moment.
I got to assume this dickhead got some backlash for this.
Of course he got backlash. Of course he got backlash. But the sad part about it is that there is a whole section of the world, just when the UFC is starting to gain a far more widespread audience and is really settling into the mainstream. This is a mainstream newscaster who goes into the homes of a lot of a certain age demographic in America. And this is a reinforcement against a section of the UFC, which the real fans have been able to view in an equal measure to the men's MMA. But as we're getting these bigger audiences that comes in, my worry is that this narrative will cement an old school mentality and will prohibit the growth of women's MMA if it starts affecting things like viewing figures.
I mean, this guy's not going to have any kind of fucking impact. I think this guy's just a fucking moron. He liked how much controversy he stirred up with his comments about Cowboy. And then, you know, Cowboy came out afterwards and said, you know what, my head just wasn't in it for that fight. And all of a sudden, this trumped up little dickhead felt vindicated. And I had a little taste of Stephen A. Smith, and that's me done. You know, he's just on my blacklist. Him, Ariel Helwani. Who else pisses me off? There's a long list of people that piss me off. Those two are at the top for sure. You know, just do your job well. Do it properly. Stop being a moron. I mean, even we have a bit more journalistic integrity than that. Nah, fucking Stephen A.
Well, also the thing is, we're not on national TV
yet.
This is an opinion podcast. We're not professional pundits. We're not. We do what we feel is some professional level analysis.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. But we're not presenting ourselves as that. And on top of that, we watch the sport. We know what we're talking about. Stephen A. Smith is that guy that shows up, watches for 5 minutes, and then shouts his opinion. And his whole career is built on giving his opinion and being argumentative. And it's almost like he doesn't quite understand that when we're talking about fighting, you have to give every single person a different level of respect who steps into that octagon. It is not the same thing as stepping onto a tennis field, stepping onto a basketball court, stepping up to pitch, stepping up to bat.
Yeah.
Just not.
Yeah.
And I know that NFL involves a lot of physical contact and aggression, and that there's a bravery in stepping on the field as well. But it's not all on you. You don't have to work through the same kind of potential mental barriers. And you've got your team with you. So I can understand frustration at that and frustration at players who don't do their part in a team. But when it comes to fighters, Conor hits hard, man. Like, this isn't, it's not, these aren't hits from a normal human being. This isn't
even that, like you said it, like the guy doesn't have enough respect. He runs his mouth on what he does not know. Matt, you know what? Fuck this guy. I can't wait anymore. We got to dive into the main card. The main card's
I
too
just
good.
want to say, fuck you, Stephen A. Smith. And here we go in the main card. Stacked all the way through. We've had a 2-week break. That always gets me a little bit excited. I've been missing my UFC fix. And here we go. Overeem versus Volkov. Great card to kick us off. Even the prelims are great fun. At the moment, pardon me, I say at the moment because as we know, anything can happen. We have currently got 8 fights on the prelims. Kicking the card off is Ode Osborne, who came into the UFC via the Contender Series. Loads of energy. Unfortunately, he came up against Brian Kelleher, who trapped him in the guillotine about 30 seconds in and taught him a valuable lesson. But he's an exciting guy, and he's coming against a guy that we saw the other week, Jerome Rivera, who unfortunately lost his fight to Little Figgy, but certainly didn't look terrible in that fight. He didn't get finished. I think he just really struggled with that top position that Figgy kept getting.
Not terrible, not impressive. Do you want to go bottom up this week?
I'm going bottom up because I want to kind of race through the slightly less important fights, and then we can get to the Mac Daddies at the top on the main card.
All right, well, easy then. As racing goes, I'm going with the Jamaican sensation, Ode Osborne.
I'm going in the same direction. Worthy note as well, this is a featherweight fight. They put it together a bit last minute, so neither of these guys have got a bad weight cut ahead of them.
Yeah.
After that, we've got Choi Seung Woo coming up against Yusuf Zalal. Zalal coming off his first loss in the UFC. Just came up against the incredibly dangerous Ilia Tupuria, but has looked very impressive aside from that. And I think this is a fight that gets him straight back on track. I think Zalal wins this pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think this is not a tune-up fight, but this isn't the hardest fight they could book for him. Obviously, you look at Sung Hoo Choi's record. Mosvar Evloev is a fucking beast. Gavin Tucker, really solid fighter, but whether he wins or he loses, I don't see anything like too special about this guy. I don't know, maybe I'm being dismissive, maybe I'm overlooking him, but I agree with you. I think Yusuf Salal's got this one. Shit, did we do the methods for these fights yet?
We haven't yet, no. I'm saying Ode Osborne by finish, just judging the way that he performed in his Contender Series fight and the fact that he literally started his fight against Kelleher by trying to do a flying knee off the just from the start. I think he's aggressive. I think he's going to look to finish the fight, and I'm going knockout.
I like that you said finish at the start because I was like torn between it a little bit. I'm going to go Ode Osborne by decision, just to get my tiebreaker in nice and early. Anyway. So Zalal by decision. Next up, we got.
So we're both going Zalal by decision.
Yeah. And then we got the meatball Molly McCann
against Lara Procopio.
Yeah, who to be honest, I don't want to be overconfident here, but I think Meatball's got this one. I think the only loss that Lara's got is Carol Rosa or Hosa, who is a decent fighter. It was a split decision, but I think Meatball Molly McCann's going to get this one, and I'm going to go out there, man. I'm going to say she finishes this one by strikes.
Oh, I'm going Molly McCann as well, but I am going by decision.
That's a good one to go with. She hasn't had any finishes in the UFC.
I was going to say she's not a finisher.
No, I'm going out there, Matt. I'm looking deep into my my mystic ball. Saying Molly McCann finished this one inside 3 rounds.
Fair enough. Obviously, Molly McCann's coming off a loss on Fight Island, but the thing is, she lost to Taylor Santos, who we saw perform against Gillian Robertson. It looks like she's an absolute monster in the division. I don't think there's any shame in losing that. And we know that Molly McCann is tough as old boots. It was a decision. She got her ass kicked in that fight, and it was a decision loss. I'm going Molly McCann. I just think that she's not got the style for a finish. It's not really in her game. So I'm saying decision.
That's fair. That's fair enough. I just feel it in my bones.
You feel it, man. And listen, she's a British fighter. You're backing the British girl. I respect that.
Yeah, she's done some training in Bournemouth as well, So got that local.
That's always cool. Talking of Carol Rosa, she features in our next fight against Jocelyn Edwards, who's coming off a very impressive win against Yanan Wu.
Yep.
This fight, however, is at bantamweight. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Jocelyn Edwards is stepping in for Nico Montana. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, I think that is correct. Let me double check that, Matt. Yeah. This was the Nico Montano fight.
Yeah, and
I
this is
think
why
that was
it's a
something stemming off
bantamweight.
yeah, it was stemming off a car
bantamweight.
accident.
Yeah, it's some weird situation in the like.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a fighter with horrific luck? I mean, that is Nico Montana.
Well, sometimes it's horrific luck. Sometimes I wonder if it's a mentality, but with this one, it certainly does seem like something shit did really happen to her. Look, I know I just said don't sleep on Carol Hoser, but I'm going to go with La Pantera for this one. I'm going to go with Jocelyn Edwards by decision.
I agree. The fact that they've made it a bantamweight to ease the weight cut in close proximity for her takes away my worries about it being short notice. She looked really good against Yanan Wu. She's big for the division. She's long. Yeah, I'm going Jocelyn Edwards. Are you going by decision or finish?
I'm going to go by decision.
Okay, I'm going to go by decision as well. Sorry to double up with you on that one, but I'm going by decision. Carol Rose is tough. And it is still short notice. I felt like Jocelyn Edwards gassed a little bit in her fight against Yanan Wu. So although I think she can start very impressively and I think she will win, I think it will be a little bit of a kind of, cruising to victory in that final round.
Yeah.
Right, we've got another, it's not a different weight class, it's a catch weight fight. I think it's going to most likely be 160, I'd imagine, something in that region. Devontae Smith, I haven't seen this guy fight in ages. He came into the UFC hot as anything and then got knocked out by Camerworthy. He's back and he's fighting Justin James, who started brilliantly after a short notice call up to the UFC, knocking out Frank Camacho in the first round. It is safe to say that it has not gone well since then for him.
Look, he hasn't looked bad. He's just looked very average since then. What I would say about Devontae Smith, yeah, he has. Devontae Smith, I think it's like a 16-month layoff, which, to be honest, isn't that bad. That's quite a smart thing to do after getting knocked out like he did against Karma Death Star Worthy.
Well, also at his age, man, he took that stop at 25. Maybe that's just him realizing that the skills weren't there. And we're going to see a Brian Ortega rebirth, a guy coming back, revitalized with new weapons in the toolkit.
Maybe, even if he doesn't want to set such lofty expectations on him, I think it's good that he's let his brain heal a bit, though. But, this guy's got some impressive wins. Beat Julian Erosa, who I really kind of rate as a decent guy. Not elite, but, certainly a fantastic litmus test. I'm going Devontae Smith by this one. I think he's going to finish him.
I think he's going to finish him as well. I'm going knockout.
TKO.
I agree with you. I hate to have to agree with you. And I think that this is going to be the end of Justin James' run in the UFC. But he's just not at the level. He's got heavy hands, but the wrestling, the rest of the game, the technical stuff, he doesn't have a jab. The kicks aren't there. He's too easy to hit. He's not very tall. I think he's a good fighter. I just think that he's in over his head.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think this is going to be his last fight in the UFC for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he works his way back, but I think it's unlikely. Right,
nothing's impossible. Yeah, sorry. Let's move on.
We'll move on. Timur Valiev against Martin Day.
This one's real cut and dry for me.
We've talked about Martin Day beforehand. So he's not the worst that we've seen, but there's nothing about him that really stands out or sparks the page. And Valiev, 16-2. He's coming.
I think he looked great against 5-star until he got caught. Before the finishing sequence, I thought this guy looked, a real legit fucking contender. I think Valiev. This is a tune-up fight. Day's on, I think, a 3-fight skid. This is just trying to rebuild Valiev a little bit after the Trevin Jones loss, which officially
wasn't
is a no
loss.
contest.
So no contest.
They overturned it for weed, which it's got to be about one of the last fights they're going to be overturning for weed because USADA aren't going to be doing weed tests for the pre and post fight anymore. They're just going to be doing the eyeball test. So it's a really tough bit of pill for Trevin Jones to swallow. But both fighters, look good. I think no contests are a bit awkward. People don't tend to remember him so well. I think this is an opportunity for him to kind of just start building the hype again. Martin Day, it's a good opportunity to try and show that you belong in the division, but I think he's overmatched in this one. I'm
I
going Valiev
completely
by
agree.
decision.
I'm going Valiev by submission.
Nice pick.
Now, this is where the card starts to get fun.
Yeah, it does.
Slow Mike Rodriguez back after his horrifically unfair submission loss to Ed Herman, where he had clearly won the fight and finished him with a body strike that then, for some bizarre reason, was given and interpreted by the referee as a shot to the
That's
penis.
a low blow. Yeah.
A shot to the nuts. And I don't know why I
Call
said
him
penis.
clean him as Stephen A. Smith's.
Yeah. But the only problem is he didn't. He called him clean in the gut. And instead of the fight being over, Ed Herman was given 5 minutes to recover. Slow Mike then was winning the fight, got caught in a bad position, and fair play to Ed Herman. He pulled out a great last-ditch Kimura to win.
Yeah, I think he had to dig his toes into the fence a little bit to get the leverage on that.
There's a few questions.
Ed Herman's an old school fighter. What do you expect? I don't hold it against Ed. I thought it was a bit shitty that they kind of called him on this stuff in the post-fight interview, but I guess that's the way the media works. Look, Slow Mike's going to bounce back in a big way, I think.
Well, he's up against Danilo Marquez.
Yeah, he's nice slouch. This boy's got some heavy hands, but I just think Slow Mike's like a really solid fucking fighter. I think he's reasonably big for 205. I think he's going to knock him out. I think this is a return to form for Slow Mike.
Man, I don't want to keep agreeing with you, but I agree with you. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go decision just on the basis that I don't want to match you 3 in a row.
Well, we got the tiebreakers in early. I think we got 2 or 3 separate already. So follow your heart. Don't blow it all on this one.
Fuck it. I'm going Mike by knockout. I'm agreeing with you.
I think it's going to be more satisfying when it happens,
True that. That takes us on. Headliner of the prelims, as Chael likes to refer to it. Damn, this is a good fight.
At lightweight. I don't know how to pick this one.
Clay Guida, the madman himself, against the Carpenter, the Belcher, the guy who looks like he should be heading up a Red Hot Chili Peppers tribute band, up against the sniper himself, Michael Johnson.
Yeah, we're going to say Dennis the Menace because that's a dumb name. But, man, when was the last time you were this excited about a fight where both guys were coming in on a 3-fight skid?
Okay, well, I think this is a fight that both guys can win. Here's the thing about it.
This is a fight I want to see.
This is the difference, though. Josh. They're on a 3-fight skid, both of these guys, right? One of those guys should have won all 3 of those fights. The other of those guys was under no expectation to even have a chance to win any of those fights. Okay. I've watched all 3 of those Michael Johnson fights, and he's winning every time.
Yep.
It's like the most frustrating thing.
Well, that Stevie Ray one, he got hard done by, I feel. That Josh Emmett one, the
Josh Emmett. And there was another one as well. Hang on a second. I'm going to bring his record up.
Thiago Moises, he got caught with a leg lock. But again, you're right. He was absolutely dominating these fights. Even if you go back a little bit before that, Darren Elkins, he was winning. Justin Gaethje, all people really remember is how exciting that fight was. But that was a back and forth fight.
Yeah.
Dennis the Menace had him fucking rocked a couple of times just in the first round. That was a great fight. And don't forget, like before he lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was the last guy to knock out Dustin Poirier. And he absolutely starched the diamond. So, this guy, he's been threatening to be like a top level talent for so long. And, he went down to 145 thinking his luck might change. But his luck just got worse. This fight is at 145 again, I believe.
It's a lightweight fight.
They've gone back up to lightweight.
He went back up to lightweight. His last fight was at lightweight as well.
All right, I was edging towards Clay Guida, but if this is a 145, I'm going to go with what I haven't checked it, but I assume is the slightly younger man in Michael Johnson.
Oh, he's definitely the younger man. But here's the thing. I think Michael Johnson should win this fight. I think in many ways, Michael Johnson will win this fight. I think he'll be 99.99% away from winning this fight. But something's going to happen, Josh. Something's going to happen. This is a guy who is in what we call a mental block. He is the Atlanta Falcons. He is Arsenal. He is like, we're there. We can do it. Just don't do anything fucking stupid. And then he does the really dumb thing, or he gets himself in the one situation. He is that guy that is now winning a fight, and then he starts doing the don't think about elephants. Don't think about elephants. It's like, don't get taken down and submitted. Don't get taken down. Oh my God. Oh fuck, I'm getting taken down. No, this leg lock. If he gets me in the leg lock, he's getting me in the, oh fuck. Or like, I'm winning. I'm winning. Everything's great. Just don't get taken down. Don't let this guy lie on top of you. What minute was that? Oh, we've got 3 minutes left in the second round. Oh, fuck. Okay, third round. Just don't get taken. Oh, fuck. This didn't happen in the first round. I was a good fighter in the first round.
The guy finds interesting ways to fuck up fights. Don't forget that Clay Guida's got a bit of that in him too. Clay Guida beat the living shit out of Brian Ortega and then just got knocked out, I think, with a knee in like the last minute or last 30 seconds of the last round. A fight that Clay Guida had dominated.
But Josh, Brian Ortega is a bad man.
Yeah, this is early on in Ortega's career, though. This is, you know, T-City's the name he's introduced to us. We haven't really understood how sick this man's submission game is at this point. And he was taking huge steps forward in each fight. So this was before, like, you know, even before Ortega 1.0, you know, before Holloway forced him to go back and learn some nasty shit he could take out on TKZ. Am I going again on the audio?
No, you're fine.
Oh, thank God. I don't know if I've got another one in me. Clay Guida certainly is a much more savvy, experienced guy. Understands how to win a fight a little better, I would say, than Michael Johnson. At 145, I was going to pick Clay Guida. I should have done my homework. At 155, I think the speed and power of Michael Johnson is going to be too much of a problem. I'm going to go with Michael Johnson by KO.
I want to go Michael Johnson by KO. He's burned me too many times. I'm going to go Clay Guida by decision. No, by knockout. Clay Guida by knockout.
Yeah.
Even if it means that Michael Johnson ends up, I'm not kidding. It could literally be something like Michael Johnson goes to throw a finishing strike, trips, and swings and punches himself in the face. That's the point that we're reaching. And Michael Johnson, if you ever listen to this, I apologize. I'm not trying to have a go at you. Like, you're really good. You're winning all of these fights. Just don't fuck it up.
Yeah, you cost me a lot of money, man. A lot of money.
Yeah, it's not nice when you cost me money.
Yeah, I don't want to make you feel bad for the faith I put into you financially. You know, you're a great fighter.
You're good.
But we're allowed to talk a little shit. We paid for that in literal fucking euros. So
yeah,
we'll say what we want. Like and subscribe, though.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the main card, because the main card kicks off with a fight that's just absolutely brilliant. Diego Ferreira.
I don't know how to pick this one either. This.
Well, let me just break it down. We have got Diego Ferreira, okay, fresh off his fantastic win against Anthony Pettis right at the start of 2020. So before any of the lockdown and the COVID and the pandemic. He's on a win streak. Let's count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His last loss was Dustin Poirier in 2015.
Yeah, and he hasn't been fantastically busy since then, but he has picked up wins against Olivier Aubin-Mercier over at PFL now, Rustin Kubilov and Taisumov, as well as the Anthony Pettis win. He's got some decent names on there, not a lot of big names, but certainly a lot of fighters that I rate. This guy's fucking legit. But let's not forget, immediately before the Poirier loss, you know, this is a rematch for him and Beneil Dariush. And Dariush did school him back in the day, you know, handed him the first loss of his career. And Beneil Dariush, similar to Michael Johnson, this is a guy that is threatened to look elite for a long time and just keeps losing the wrong fights. But Beneil Dariush, for me, is a guy not to be fucked with.
Well, let's just say he's had one slip up recently, or a couple of years ago when he fought Alexander Hernandez, and he got knocked out in like 18 seconds or something. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, it was in the first minute.
It was in the first minute. It wasn't good.
Alexander Hernandez at his best, to be honest. You know, the best that we've seen him.
Best we've ever seen of him. But since then, he's on a four or five fight win streak, and his first fight in 2020, where he's on the verge of getting knocked out, almost out on his feet, and then manages to come back and end the fight 10 seconds later. The guy's on a roll. He's looking tough. He's got great hands. He has the power of the Lord with him.
Look, this guy just knows how to fight. He understands MMA. He's been in the game a long time. That win against Drakkar Klose, like I said, that was really a really cool fucking performance. Great comeback. The Scott Holtzman knockout was pretty cool. Frank Camacho, I remember that being a great performance. You know, and even when he lost to Edson Barboza, you know, Barboza really kind of pulled out some real next level know-how to land that knee on him as he was coming in for the takedown. You know, Beneil Dariush just always comes out ready, always looks good. You know, even when he loses, he looks good, in my opinion. Yeah, and he's got the win over Diego Ferreira. Honestly, you know, my mind tells me that Diego Ferreira is probably going to be able to submit him in this one, but yeah, I'm going to take my boy Beneil by decision.
I think Dariush is a good fighter. I think it's a little bit unfair. Apparently, he's got the power of the Lord with him. I think that should mean that he has to have at least one less cornerman.
You're just trying to bring in as many reasons to justify putting all the religious conversation from earlier into this episode. So I'm just going to do this, just so you know that's not happening. Just snip, 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 Matt. I'll make some fucking edits.
Do you not think? I think it would be good for Laurie to know that we can offer more than just MMA on this show. That we have the ability to delve into the discussions about the world, about the makeup of the universe, about the very fabric that makes up a human being.
Don't invoke that name like that. Say Laurie like I'm going to suddenly want to try and impress him. And it kind of worked a little bit as well as the weird fucking thing. Don't take Laurie's name in vain like that. Like, this.
Come on, man. Some of the best bits of Joe Rogan's podcast are him with MMA people and they get onto different topics of conversation. I think it's a thing. I think it's a nice.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. But
the power of the Lord.
My pick. I'm going for Diego Ferreira by submission. I think Dariush is a good fighter. I thought that Diego Ferreira would lose to Anthony Pettis, but he didn't. He looked really good in that
fight. He looked dominant.
And I don't get me wrong. I think Dariush is a better striker, but I don't think Dariush is going to be able to stop this fight becoming a grappling exchange. And I think once Diego gets his hands on him, it's going to be really difficult for Dariush to avoid being submitted.
I think Ferreira is definitely going to get him down. Ah, motherfucker.
We're almost there, mate. Just one more time. Sorry, Laurie. Sorry, Laurie, for the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
We'll do better next time.
So
let's figure it out.
Yeah, fuck it, man. Ferreira's going to get him down, for sure. I just feel like Dariush is going to be able to do enough to scramble back up. I think Dariush is going to do enough across the first round or two to keep Ferreira honest on the takedowns. I don't think his takedowns are necessarily better than Dariush's takedown defense, but I think a persistent approach is going to yield some effect here. I think Dariush is going to box him up a little bit, and I think Dariush is going to take the last 2 rounds. Yeah, I just got too much belief in my boy Benny.
Fair enough. Well, we're different on that one. I still think Dariush is a great fighter. I think he will still go do great things. I just can't see past Diego by submission for this fight. Right. Moving on. Cody Stamann was meant to be fighting Andre Ewell, who was already stepping in to replace somebody else who couldn't fight. It has now ended up being Askar fighting. The fight's been moved up to a featherweight fight to make up for the short notice and the weight cut for Askar.
Yeah.
I don't know if this makes it a more or a less winnable fight for Cody, to be honest.
I think Cody Stamann's too good to be losing against the guy coming in off where he's got experience with LFA and island fights, but he bounces around the regional scene. He's got an impressive record, but I mean, goddamn, Cody's only really lost to in the UFC. He's only lost to Aljo, and his last fight, Jimmy Rivera.
He got schooled in that fight, though. He really did get schooled.
He did, but Jimmy Rivera is a really underrated fighter. I think there's levels to this game. Askar's too much for an unknown commodity, but I don't see a lot of guys come in fighting anywhere near the level of a Cody Stamen. Cody Stamen's pretty fucking legit, and
He looked
it
very
was
good against Gallagher.
Yeah, he did. Marab Davishvili, who was supposed to be fighting originally, who was a decent fucking fighter. Andre Yu, a decent guy on the rise. I think Askar is in here to keep Cody on the card, but I don't know how much he's going to test him. I think Cody Stamen's going to win this one by decision.
Fair enough.
How do you feel about this one?
I don't know that much about Askar. I've got to be honest. The first time I saw that name pop up, I literally thought that they meant Askar Askarov and just forgot to put the OV on. And it was only after I did some research I realized it's a different person.
So that's Askarov, a very different prospect.
Yeah. So that definitely threw me off. The record is impressive. I know what you mean. It's regional circuits. You can't put too much credit on it. Cody Stamen's look very impressive. I agree with you, man. I'm going to go one further. I'm going to say TKO victory for Cody.
Fair enough. I should tell you what, talking about Askar Askarov, talking about a fighter that kind of runs in the same circles. Up next, we've got Manel Cape. I'm too used to kind of watching this guy's name pronounced by Japanese announcers and journalists. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure the pronunciation is Manel Cape, but it's been Cape.
I'd expect that to be Cape. We'll say Cape coming up against Pantoja.
Yeah, the cannibal Alexandre Pantoja or Pantoja. I think Pantoja's a slight favorite in this one, but man, I think Manel Cape's a fucking beast. The guy's got wins against Kai Asakura. I don't think he beat Kyoji Horiguchi. I think he lost to him, but certainly he's come up against the fucking best in this division. Had a bit of a weird win against Ian McCall, but a win nonetheless. This guy's a fucking beast.
You're right. He lost to Horiguchi. He initially lost to Asakura, but then his most recent loss and his last fight in Ryzen, he avenged that and was able to get the win. He's beaten Mizugaki, Ian McCall, as you say, Yamamoto early on. Yeah, started in the force in Portugal at the beginning of his career before moving across. He looks good. I'm not surprised that Pantoja is the favorite. I will be honest. I think whenever it comes to things like this with the odds, they tend to favor the more experienced UFC fighter. And with Ryzen, I don't know how good. I know that he's fought some people that you have a high opinion of. I don't know how good the rest of the competition was consistently, but obviously he's got the skills. I wouldn't look past Pantoja myself personally, just on the basis that he's a little bit more experienced in this division. He knows the UFC. He did obviously lose to Askarov, as we were talking about,
and Figgy, but
that's no disrespect there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And then the last loss, you've got to go all the way back to 2018 Dustin Ortiz, which, in my opinion, is a Dustin Ortiz near the top of his game, if only a little past it. The guy's got wins against Brandon Moreno, Sasaki, Wilson Hayes, Matt Schnell. I don't want to discredit Pantoja at all. I think Pantoja's a fucking beast. I'm just a little excited about Manel Cape coming over. I think Cape's got this one. So hard to say how it's going to happen. I'm just going to be respectful of both guys and say Cape by decision.
I'm going to say Pantoja by decision. I think guys can often struggle in their UFC debut. Tell me, is the elbow or any of the knee rules different with Ryzen?
I believe soccer kicks is the only difference.
Okay.
That and they fight in a ring with the ropes.
In a ring instead. Okay. I knew about the ring. I just wasn't sure if there's any other rule differences.
I'm probably wrong, but I think soccer kicks is the only one.
Elbows? They might not let elbows go?
No, I think it's just PFL that don't do elbows.
Okay.
That's because they have the whole idea of having the season formats. They want to limit
Yeah.
facial cut injuries.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Pantoja decision. I think it'll be a good fight. Really, really good fight.
Oh man, it's one of the most. It's one of the fights I'm the most excited for. Like on this main card, well, in fact, across the whole night, for whatever reason, I really want to see the Michael Johnston Clay Guida fight. I think Diego Ferreira against Benil Dariush is going to be some fucking next level shit.
I'd
I
say, yeah,
really,
it's my 5th favorite fight on the card. Pantoja
yeah, man.
Cape.
Pantoja Cape is fucking right up
Behind,
there.
then
And
I'd
then
say Guida versus, oh my God. Guida versus Michael Johnson is 4th. I'd say, yeah, Dariush versus Ferreira is 3rd. And that takes us quite nicely to our co-main event, which is
this
my
is my
second.
top pick, man.
This is your most anticipated fight.
Yeah, I've got Overeem Volkov probably in my 5th slot, to be honest.
Interesting. Well,
I think it's going to be a great fight and an exciting fight, but it's a fight that both guys have too much experience and too much stake on to really let it be a real wild barn burner. I think it's going to be a much more kind of technical stand-up fight, done at a slower pace across 5 rounds.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this. It's going to be a technical affair. This is going to be a showcase of, in the main event, what heavyweights can do at the elite level, that they're not just big overweight sluggers who get tired.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with that. And I'm really excited about Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. But I'm not happy about it being 3 rounds.
Yeah, I know what you mean. If
it was the main
I don't
event,
think it's going to make a difference. I think Sandhagen's going to get the finish.
Well,
inside 3.
Well, he's not. Yeah, Edgar's got way less of a chance with 3 rounds. That's the issue that I have with this. And okay, so here's the thing. I'll make my pick and my prediction, but I'm going to say it with a caveat. Okay, I love Frankie Edgar. I fucking love Frankie Edgar. Before we started recording, I was literally watching the Gray Maynard fights, the 2nd and the 3rd one at 125 and at UFC 136. The guy is incredible. Like the fact that he was the lightweight champion and he's now down at bantamweight and he still looks small for the division compared to some of these other guys is just a testament to how fucking tough and resilient and brave and good of a fighter, of a mixed martial arts fighter Frankie Edgar is. And in many ways, bantamweight was always his weight class. And it's such a shame that he didn't go down when there was the Dominic Cruzes and the Uriah Favors and his generation there.
Henan Barao.
I think he would have dominated all of those guys. I think he would have been the best ever. And then if he went up and lost at featherweight, who gives a crap? And his lightweight accomplishments are amazing. Realistically, Corey Sandhagen is a different breed of fighter. He is the new MMA fighter. He can do everything. I was watching Dan Hardy's analysis, and he was talking about how Frankie Edgar's got boxing footwork for his boxing, wrestling footwork for his wrestling. And it's very much those sections kind of pieced together for an MMA fighter. Corey Sandhagen has learned everything as one fluid movement. He has MMA footwork. He's long, he's tall. I mean, it's crazy to think that Frankie's going to still be 2 weight classes down from where he was the champ. Short on reach, short on height, short on power, all these factors. It's Corey Sand, and the worst part about this is that if this was 5 rounds, you'd at least have to factor in the element that Corey Sandhagen has to balance his energy levels, has to maybe think about a 5-round strategy. Frankie Edgar has the opportunity to then implement a 5-round strategy. Over 3 rounds, Frankie's going to have to be more aggressive than I think he's best suited to be in this fight. So I think his hands are tied behind his back. I can't see anything past a Corey Sandhagen win. I think Frankie is so tough that it's not going to be a finish. I think it's going to be Corey Sandhagen by decision. Caveat. Frankie Edgar is currently like a 5-1 or a 6-1 underdog just to win the fight, not even by finish. If you're putting your money down, don't put your money down on Corey Sandhagen. There's absolutely no point. You're going to get no return, and there's always the chance that he's going to lose. Frank Edgar is most likely going to lose this fight, but I don't care who he's up against. He is never a 6-1 underdog.
No. And the difference you point out with the size and the footwork, sometimes it's Frankie's kind of awkwardness because his takedown approaches aren't the most sophisticated. Sometimes it's his awkwardness that gets it down. The Yair Rodriguez fight springs to mind. Just having the lowest center of gravity, just coming in anytime Yair was on one foot looking to throw something, and then just destroying him, basically stood up in his guard because the guy's too long to defend well on the ground. Sanhagen's not going to have the same problems. But, Frankie Edgar's certainly not a 5-1 or a 6-1 underdog in my eyes. That's ridiculous. I do think Corey Sandhagen's going to win this fight by finish. That's just me, a guy on a podcast making a pick. The answer is the fucking legend. Like, just one of the classiest, most impressive guys to ever step foot in the sport. Corey Sandhagen is on a roll. Really dangerous guy. I just think his kicking game is going to be too much, and Frankie Edgar's just a little too old. That's it.
Also, if you look at Frankie Edgar's performance debut at bantamweight against Pedro Munoz, great fight. He gave it everything he had. I had Pedro winning that fight. I was quite surprised that they gave it to Frankie, if I'm honest.
Sorry, I'm mid sneeze.
Don't worry, you're all good. You saved it well. Not quite.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I thought Munoz won that fight. It's still a good fight, good performance from Frankie. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm going to be absolutely made up if he pulls this one off. I wonder how many wins away he would be from a title shot if he pulls this one off. But in my mind, Sandhagen's a bad matchup for him. Aljo, Jan, bad matchups for him at this point in his career at this age. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.
You're going by finish. I'm going by decision.
Yeah.
Both for Corey. I'd love to see Frankie do it. If he does it, then he deserves a title shot straight away, in my opinion. Whether or not he does do it is a different story. Most likely he doesn't. For all the reasons that you said. Bad matchup. He's 38. It's a young man's division, bantamweight. It's
pretty sure this guy has the record for the most minutes inside the octagon as well.
Wouldn't surprise me. Do you know what his average fight time is?
Probably like 4.5 rounds.
Not quite. It's 17 minutes.
Jesus. 3.5 rounds. So, and this guy is renowned for being nigh on knockoutable, which is a nice way of saying his chin's been tested a lot. They don't last forever. I hope I'm wrong.
We'll see what happens. That takes us to the main event. We've already talked about it a little bit, but we've got Alistair Overeem against Alexander Volkov. Technical fights. It's going to be heavyweights. It's going to be not, fast-paced. It's going to be a real chess match. I just feel that Volkov, if we're looking at it in a chess match, to make a bad analogy, Volkov has got a bunch of pawns and a few bishops. Okay. So there's a few things that he can do, but it's pretty much all in one direction. Alistair Overeem, I feel, has got the full bag of tricks. There's so many different ways that he can approach it. There's so many different stances, different ways of fighting, different weapons that he's got, ways that he can confuse Volkov, throw him off rhythm, that I can't see past Overeem for this. I think if Volkov shows the kind of aggression that he showed against Walt Harris, we've got an excellent fight on our hands. And you know that you can catch Overeem. We all know that Overeem can be caught and he can be rocked and he can be knocked out. So that's always on the cards. But this is a guy who knows this is his last opportunity to run for a title. He's got 2 wins in the bag. He probably only needs this and maybe one more.
Well, it depends how it shakes out. But I think we both agree that the winner of Lewis Blades is going to get the next crack after John Jones gets his crack. So a win here, if he sat it out and everything went quick, would potentially put him at 4th in line, as I see it. But, injuries happen. Timings don't always match up. No one's actually seen John Jones at heavyweight yet. We don't fucking know.
But you're right. This is a must win, man. I think he's going to... If Izzy wins the 205 belt, I think he fights Izzy.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I'd love to see Izzy kick his ass. But, like you said, this is going to be a slow-paced fight. Overeem and Volkov. Overeem really does need to win this fight if he wants to finish up his career as a champ. I think Volkov, like you say, Overeem for sure is the most versatile fighter, the more versatile fighter out of the two. But as I see it, this fight is Volkov's to fuck up. If Volkov can come in aggressive, like he did against Walt Harris, like he did against Fabricio Verdum, if he can stay on the outside, stay busy, and just not get fucking caught like he did against like Derek Lewis, I just feel Volkov's going to take a clear 3-4 round decision here. Fuck knows what's going to happen. These are big boys, these are little gloves. You know, it's one of the most exciting divisions for a reason, even though it's a little short on depth. But you know, it's not going to be the most exciting fight of the night. I'm calling that one right away. I think both guys are too experienced for that, a bit too long in the tooth to just let it go fucking wild. We've got too many exciting fucking fights, like too many surefire barn burners on this card. But this is going to be a really cool fucking fight. And if you like watching technical heavyweight fights, I'm thinking like Crow Cop against Fedor. You know, this is going to be more that kind of vibe. You know, fun, exciting, but you know, you can edit together a lot of highlights across a 5-minute fight. It doesn't mean that the whole thing went fucking 100 miles an hour. It's just going to be a cool fight, and I think Volkov's going to come out on top on this one. I'm going to go Drago by decision.
I'm going to go Overeem by knockout. And I got to say, just to kind of just talk about the whole card as a whole very quickly, I feel like we've got little sort of like mini seasons at the moment. Like we had the 3-card run at Fight Island at the start of the year. We've now got this 4-card run coming up in Vegas, including UFC 258. That's then going to pull into another run in March with 259 and 260. I know this card very much feels like it's sort of the, the US opening of the season of the new UFC year to a certain extent after the Fight Island. It's good. And I think a lot of these fights could be pay-per-view worthy. We've got obviously UFC 258 coming up after that. It's going to be pretty exciting. And hopefully by next week, we've got the Ryan Hall deep dive in motion.
Yeah, we're still waiting for him to get back to us on Instagram. But
I'm going to assume he's not going to get back to us. And I'm going to start the project assuming that we're not going to get that clearance and find other ways.
All right, we'll try and get that done for next week then.
All right, everyone, apologies for the technical difficulties. We're going to edit a lot of it out, but if you wonder why there's more edits this week,
it's because we had a long religious conversation that Josh was adamant we cut out.
That's staying in.
So I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, bye, Laurie.
Bye, Laurie. Everyone else, like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Bye, Laurie.